it's not so, because another barrier is the beach leases that they grant. NEPA grants these, and there are more than 250 of these leases in Jamaica. Every hotel have one of these leases that exclude you from the hotel beach. And it's not only excluding you from the beach, but it's also excluding you from several feet out into the water. So we need clarification, because if it's in fact a public space, then you must have access to it. Because as we said on this program several times, Jamaicans don't have wings that we can just fly over the land and land, on the foreshore. And I'd like to let my fellow Jamaicans know that the Beach Control Act have also not defined what a beach is. So it's funny that it's called the Beach Control Act of 1956, but it doesn't define the beach.
Yes.
It's just basically saying that
and it's
foreshore area.
And it's important to note the date 56, which means that we're talking about a colonial era document. This is a law that is steeped in colonialism. And if we are going to, if there's a ministry, I think, and I'm not quite sure what your thoughts are on it, that was created just recently that deals with constitution. I can't remember the name of the ministry, but it's headed by Marlene Malahoo Fort, and it has to do with some constitutional reform and so on. Isn't this one of the things that the ministry, I think, could also take up in short order if government was really serious about change?
Absolutely. And once they open up this conversation, we're going to be first in line. We have been publicly asking for the repeal and replacement of the Beach Control Act of 1956. Listen, it does not have no right being a legislation in Jamaica. All right? Its time has come and its time has passed. And it's really hurting lives and livelihoods in Jamaica.
Why do you think it is so difficult? Why do you think it is so difficult, Dr. Taylor? Because remember, the pressure has been on the government for years. Remember when there was a serious pressure on Winifred Beach, for example, and we could go before that and before that and before that, where citizens have risen up literally to pressure successive governments to pay attention to the fact that Jamaicans were being locked out of the beach. It wasn't until, say, I think 1997, 98, that we had a former minister of government come in, called me on the phone to say, listen, I hear you talking about this every Sunday, and nothing is going to change unless we pay attention to the Beach Control Act. It is in law. And so he came in the studio and he helped us to understand that. That happened in about 1998. And I'm saying that there has been a fight, whether through the newspapers or through programs like these, for government to repeal that act, for government to look at that, whether it is the PNP or the JLP. But they haven't done so. So my experience, I have my own answer, and I want you to tell me, why do you think the government has taken a decision not to repeal that act, not to even address questions of the act, but, as you said earlier, to seek to confuse Jamaicans by talking about we are not in the business of selling beaches?
Well, let's just clearly state it that it's lobbyists, and the lobbyist is the tourism industry of Jamaica, and I will clearly say that. All right, the tourism industry of Jamaica, and, as I mentioned earlier, this law is institutionalized in Jamaica right now, okay? So the tourism, Jamaica push out that, 50% of the country foreign exchange is coming through tourism, and that tourism employment, 1 in every 4 person in Jamaica, all right? So, this is the backdrop, against what we know that the Jamaican tourism industry is an apartheid-like tourism industry, because it basically says, the average Jamaican cannot bathe on the beach, cannot use the beach while tourists is on the beach. So, I would lay this squarely at the feet of the tourism industry in Jamaica is holding the entire country hostage.
I agree with you.
And then all of these politicians are in the pocket of the tourism industry and all of its facets. And what we're also seeing happening across Jamaica right now, all right, is also dispossession from land to create these kind of apartments, exclusive high-price luxury apartment style, development, commercialization. And one of my good friend reminded me, never use that word development. Development takes into consideration people, environment, and culture. And these do not just massive commercialization that is happening now. These vulture capitalists now coming in for these prime real estate on the coastal spaces and are now using them to build up high-end $1 million, $2 million apartments that Jamaicans can't afford. So it is this industry that, they control our political members. And we, are asking our citizens, to look at your councillors and your MP and tell them that they need to really let go the lobbyists them and free up, the natural heritage of the country. Our birthright do not need to be exclusively owned, pilfered by these people. So they are the one who hold it hostage.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I want you to hold for me. Well, hang up because we're going to go to the Supreme Ventures draw, and we'll call you back right after the draw. But it's going to be about 5 minutes to continue the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devon Taylor. All right, we're going to go back to the phone lines to speak with Dr. Devon Taylor. We're looking at a very vexing issue it has become here on the island, which is access to our beaches. And as I listened to Tristan and the team on location there, for the Jamaica Cancer Society One Walk happening in Ocho Rios, and just knowing the route that they take all along the coastline. There's so much of that route, even as we talk about curing cancer, de-stressing, etc., but so much of that coastline that they would have been running by today, we have lost access to. This is how serious the situation is. Had access to all of that coastline, but as it is now, I can't think of any of that coastline which the Jamaican people have a right of way to walk into. I think there's one that you have to pay in. That might be in on the beach. Remember, you had to access that from the hotel, but I think you can access that now from the plaza, the shopping plaza. But outside of that, it is Fisherman's Beach is commercialized in such a way as to deter the ordinary Jamaican from just walking onto that beach. In on the beach too, that has happened. Now they've locked down Little Duns River, and as you go along the coastline, there's hardly anywhere. We're losing. Dr. Devon Taylor is back with me on the phone lines. Dr. Taylor, thanks for staying with us and for continuing this conversation, which I think this morning we have to just kind of lay down some gauntlet. We've been talking about this for a very, very long time. You want to take us now. You said earlier that there were 2 beaches that JABEM identified that will now serve as a kind of an activist point or activism point to whether it is through the courts. Tell me how you plan to do this, how JABEM plan to do this. How do you plan to use these 2 beaches as a point or as an example?
Yes. So what we have used, what we are using now is one accommodation that was placed in the Beach Control Act of 1956. It's an old law called prescriptive law. It's been around since 1882. And basically what that law basically is saying is that if you're using a track, a roadway, some path, you use that track for a minimum of 20 years to access the beach, then you can go into the court and you could ask the court to recognize your right, of what you call customary right, all right, for those 20 years, to now recognize that you should continue to use that track, that roadway, to continue to access the ocean, all right, in perpetuity, forever. So that is one component that was was attached in the law as a, give you a door, if you will, to try to protect, your access to the space. Now, all of this burden sits with the individual, sits with the community. As a matter of fact, you need a minimum of around 5 people to make this a reality, right? So your community must be involved. And we, JABEM is using that component now. We're using prescriptive law to really challenge the system. So I want to say this very clearly to my Jamaicans in Jamaica and in the diaspora. You don't no longer need to be powerless. I want you to cast away that fear. I want you to cast away the fear of violence and a reprisal against you, because many of the times citizens rise up to really kind of exercise their rights under the Constitution of Jamaica. And because of fear in the society, that comes from several quarters, they back down. I'm saying to you, you have a friend. You have a fellow citizen, you have a fellow member of your society that is now saying that JABEM can stand with you to help you fight against your beach access law. A beach access, denial. We are using this prescriptive act. We are using this tool. So don't be fearful anymore. Don't be feel alone anymore. We are doing so.
Well, we
have started.
Yes, go ahead. You have started the process?
We've started the process with 2 beaches in Jamaica, 2 beaches that have been in the news over the pandemic, because they have done this in the middle of a pandemic, That's where they displaced Steertown, So we're going to talk about the Steertown case, and we're going to talk about the Bob Marley Beach case. Both communities, all right, in slightly different ways, all right, are displaced, are set up to be displaced. The Mama Bay community has already been displaced. All right, that was with complicity, clear complicity of the Jamaican government, because the police and the soldiers were very instrumental when the community demonstrated. Several times the community demonstrated, all right, and they were still pushed out. So let's talk about Mama Bay Beach. Mama Bay, as you know, right between Ochery and Senance Bay, Steertown is the closest community to that space. I've been claiming that space since 1919. Members of the Steertown community have been using that beach. All right? And, generations of fisher folks, baptism, recreation, everything that you could think of that we use that beach for, gathering sea moss. Just the community used to use it for, Heritage Week.
Yes.
Celebration on the beach, massive amount. Fire services come out. Very public affair.
Yes, I used to drive there on a Sunday after work if I feel, a little bit overwhelmed, and just cock up my foot in my vehicle and just go and chill on the beach. May I tell you the truth? Mommy Bay Beach, right there, sir. I too have lost that access where after, a hard day of work, you just go sit down on the beach and look out to the horizon. But the people of Mommy Bay fought tooth and nail not to be deprived, not to be dislocated, not to be discarded by the government of Jamaica from that property, but yet they were.
They were, and here is even the craziest part of it. It's not even a beach that was not recognized by the government, The beach is recognized as a NEPA gazetted beach, which means that it is duly recognized since 1976, because something happened in that time frame too, An American, American billionaire came in there trying to displace the community from the space, in 1959. And we have some stalwart Steertown fishermen, them stand up. Mr. Harvey them, Mr. Butty them, Mr. Harry them, stand up and fight back against this thing. And win in a Senance Bay court. And when they win in Senance Bay court, this billionaire took the community, community of fisher folks, back in the 50s there, when, of course, we don't have access to certain things. Those fisher folks were brave enough, and this is what I want to say to my fellow Steertonians. We are brave people. We stand up against odds. And we were victorious and fight, and we won these things. And them took us to the Supreme Court. And yes, we lost in the Supreme Court because they had all of their big barristers and their QCs and the institutionalization of the Beach Control Act. Right? And the hotel, comes and says, well, we're going to build this $1 billion thing. But them must say them things from all those times.
Yes. And
the system ruled against our people. However, at least at that time, there was a government in place that was a people-friendly government. And I have to give that government credit.
Which government was that?
The Michael Manley government. And they sent their ministers there who told the fisher folks, don't leave. And that they're going to provide a fix for the community.
Yes.
And what the fix was is that the government gazetted the beach and made it into an official fishing beach and tell the people don't leave. So it became a lawful space recognized by the government of Jamaica that the Mammoth Bay Beach, is a gazetted beach. So when they
But the people have lost it now. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, so when they came now and they displaced the community, I don't know how could they displace the community from a gazetted beach if the government wasn't complicit in it. This government complicit in it. And I want my people to understand, while this is political, it is not partisan.
No.
So don't get I wrong.
Yeah, don't get it twisted.
Don't get me wrong. And I'm asking my community, don't get me wrong, because I know there is fear in my community from reprisal. Because and I understand that very clearly, Steertown.
I understand it too, because I see and hear the posturing. So people are afraid, but the law should protect the people. The government should protect the people. I just cannot. I am at my wit's end this morning. I am sad. I'm close to tears because I think from out of any other time that I've had a conversation about access to the beach and access to the land, this is the most emotional that I've ever been, because I am so aware this morning that we are about to lose everything. I've seen the plans, I've seen the ads, I see the extensions into St. Thomas, I see the extensions further into Negril, I see what's happening on the North Coast, I see what's happening in St. Mary, and I feel impotent. But so the question remains now, so Steertown is gone, or is there a case, considering it was a gazetted beach, it was for the people, it went to the Supreme Court, government did what they had to do, and the people had the beach, now the people have lost the beach. Is there any recourse? Can the people regain the beach, or is it too late?
So that is what we're doing. So what we filed in the St. Anne's Bay Court, Marcus Duff, all right, Jabem's attorney, filed in St. Anne's Bay Court to get our day in court. So March the 14th, 2023, we are going into the courts, and we are declaring to this court that that's our beach. And we have all the supporting documents and evidence to show that is our beach. And so we have 11 claimants from Steertown, including Jabem organization and including the Steertown community organization. And we pull a group of fisher folks, of beach goers, individuals from nearby community together, because we did our work, we sat, we alleviate their fears, and we understand that once fear sets in, it can do a number on you.
Yes,
so what Jabem is trying to do with the Jamaican public right now, he's saying that let's cast away the fear. Because once you cast away the fear, others will join in. And that is one of my appeal to the larger Jamaican community this morning, to the diaspora and to friends of Jamaica. And I'm particularly reaching out to our more affluent part of Jamaica, to all my brothers and sisters who reside in uptown, who reside in corporate Jamaica, that this cannot continue in Jamaica. And Steertown is really going forward and is going to need your help.
Yes.
We are the Steertown and Mammoth Bay, the Chalky Hill, the Daily Stone, the extension of Greenwich Acres, all my brothers and sisters in Green Bay, we are not doing anything wrong. Nothing that we're doing is anti-development. Nothing that we're doing is saying that you cannot build a hotel there. What we are asking for is our right, our beach birthright, our ecological heritage right as defined within the Constitution of Jamaica. That says we have a right to enjoy our ecological heritage. We need back the access points to the Miami Bay Beach that we had since 1919. I will ask the Senate Bay Court, Marcus, file this in the court. We have a court date for the 14th, and we are saying that by way of prescriptive rights, we have been using it for more than 40 years. So we have met all that litmus test that was required and that was asked of us. And we're asking the government, whatever you did wrong, you need to undo it because it was wrong. It was wrong to put your armed guards there. It was wrong to put your police there and your military there because in a democracy that we have, the people have right to protest. Yes. And the people did protest. And they were shot at. I mean, they had to run.
Supported by...
Yes. They displaced. They were violently displaced.
Oh, Jaja.
And we understand on the other end as well that they came in and they bribed members of the community and they gave them money. But that does not, means that you sold your right out.
Right, which is now the MO. This is how the big conglomerates who are coming in to wrestle access to land and ownership of land from the people who have been occupying these lands for over 50 years, over 60 years, 70 years, that they are bribing them with pittance to get off the land because they have lowered us. We're in such a condition, a destitute condition, that people are taking up as bread and butter issues for them, so they're grabbing on this for the short term. Hold the line for me, please, because let me take a quick break. I'll be right back.
For the very best in maritime education, apply now at cmu.edu.jm. The time by CMU is...
a minute after 9 o'clock, talking about access here in Jamaica. It is a very critical, urgent, acute, it's chronic, but the situation has become acute because we're in there's a process that is underway led by the minister and the Ministry of Tourism that is denying access to the people of Jamaica, denying access to land, to the beach, to recreational spaces, lobbied by the tourism industry. We're talking about the global tourism industry. They're collecting prizes every single prize-giving ceremony. Jamaica's Minister of Tourism is on stage. But the people of Jamaica are living in abject poverty and are denied the recreational spaces, including the beaches, that have been confiscated and handed over to tourism interests, while the Minister of Tourism goes around the world collecting awards for being such a good tourism minister. That is slavery, That is slavery. It's a plantation system. But too many of us are silent. And I really do hope that we don't have to do too many more of these programs, that this morning, somewhere, you would have picked up on not just the passion, but the hurt that you're hearing from myself and also from Dr. Devon Taylor. The fact that we find ourselves in a situation here on the island of Jamaica where we are denied access and everybody is silent. Dr. Taylor, all right, so that's a plan as far as the Steertown is concerned. Then there's also the matter in St. Ann before we move to Bob Marley Beach, of Little Duns River, which is still locked off, which is still not opened. We heard from, when we spoke with Marcus Goff the other day, that this prescriptive policy that if you're occupying the land for a certain amount of time, the area for a certain amount of time, then you have access under the law to that. Now, I think what I heard from Marcus is that if you are absent from that property for a year, then it nullifies all of that. And I think there is something underhanded happening with Little Duns River, that the tapes are still up, that access is still being denied, and the people have been driven off the property. I think they're trying to wait us out to ensure that the year passes, and then they probably have already sold it because they're now calling it private property, that they hand it over to whatever private interest or tourism interest that has bought it. What are your thoughts?
So what we're saying to all our, brothers and sisters who use Little Duns River, including myself, but for the ones who have been there since I was a youth and drive by and see all of the Rasta, using that space, reach out to Jabem. Okay? As I said earlier, don't be fearful anymore. Don't think you're lonely. Don't think there's no solution. All right? Reach out to Jabem. Call us. At 293-5835. Pick up the phone, call us. You can email us at info@jabem@gmail.org. All right, you can go for any of our social media angle. Get in touch with us. Let us understand for all the ones who have been using that space for minimum of 20 years without any permission to do so, and we can help you get into the courts, because that's going to be the solution. Yes, they're going to try to wait you out for that ear window, but we're not even watching the ear window, because we're going to test these things in the courts, and we're going to test them, because you know what? No time frame can really, force us not to exercise our constitutional rights, because the Constitution was amended. Okay? An amendment in the Constitution says that Jamaicans must have the right to enjoy a healthy and productive environment, free from threat of injury and damage from any environmental abuse and degradation. And we are saying that. Okay? We're going to test all of this in the court. We want our government to look on us and tell us that we don't deserve the right to that space. Now we're in an era of social media where everything can be publicized. And we're going to publicize this discrimination against the Jamaican people. We're going to read loud in all the international arenas that says, everybody else can come there and use it except our Jamaican people. So we're going to test all of this facet in them court of law until we push for a legislation change, which we are already pushing for it. We're asking for a repeal. We're asking for a replacement of the Beach Control Act, because, again, it is because of the institutionalization of the Beach Control Act why Little Duns River is happening. Okay? It is that why Mama Bay is happening. And it is what if we are not careful or not, if we don't become victorious in the Bob Marley beach access case, that is how we're going to lose it. That is how we're going to lose Reggae Beach. That is how,
we've already lost Reggae Beach.
Long Bay in Portland.
We've already lost Reggae Beach. Yes. I hear the point you're making, but so much has been lost. And I think for us, the rest of it is important, but also there has to be a repeal of this law retroactively that will give access to every single beach. There must be that law on the island that you can access the beach, generally speaking, without saying, okay, you can access that beach. You should be able to access the beach as they do in Cuba, as they do in Barbados, as they do in other parts of the world. All right, so with just a few minutes left, let us talk now about what is the latest with Bob Marley Beach.
Okay, so with Bob Marley Beach as well, and we've spoken about this several times. The track that leads to the Bob Marley Beach runs over the Wolf Group Limited property. All right, to get to Bob Marley Beach, you must pass over that property, and you must also pass over Commission of Lands property to get to the beach. So therefore, if Wolf Group decide to, which every hotel has done so on the northern coast, to draw their wire fence, which they need no permission from no government, they would have blocked the public out. So we also filed that case in the court. So we have filed another prescriptive act for Bob Marley Beach in the courts. We are using 12 claimants in this case, including Jabem and the Jamaica Surfing Association, along with fisher folks, vendors, beach goers who are in that 9 Mile community. And we filed that, and that case is coming up on May 23rd in 2023. Again, Marcus Goff is the one who filed that. So we have these 2 cases now in the court system using prescriptive law, saying that we want back Marley Bay Beach and saying that we want to protect Bob Marley Beach from becoming fully privatized and the public don't have access to it. And that's what we are doing. We are asking to reopen those access. I should mention also that while we're going up against Wolf Group Limited in Bob Marley Beach, we're going up against a company called Cepheius Holding and Riverland Holding in the case of Marley Bay. Those are the 2 entities that have, whose names are on land titles to say that they own these spaces in Marley Bay. And we have filed these kind of prescriptive cases in the court. And we're using this prescription law to regain access and to protect access. Those are the tools that we have right now. And we're going to have to push for that legislative change. We're asking for this, okay? And I want to let my Jamaican people that we are dead serious. We are at the point of no return, because if we don't do that, our kids, our grandkids will never see the sea. Jamaica will become a landlocked. And what we have also done, we have reported this to the United Nations. Okay?
Yes.
Tomorrow, Jamaica comes up to the United Nations, where Jamaica claims that there is no discrimination in Jamaica. There is no racism in Jamaica. And we are telling the United Nations that is not so. There is beach access discrimination in Jamaica that is tantamount to racism, because it is targeted against a certain socio-economic group in Jamaica. And so we report this. This will be presented to the United Nations tomorrow. We're not clear with this. This is madness in our country. And I cannot be a victim of this and stand there silent. And this is shame upon all our, critical thinkers. I mean, we have had some stalwarts in the business. I mean, in this fight over the many years. Our John Maxwell, our Carlin Cooper, our Esther Figueroa. Okay, we have had them. We have had regular citizens write about this in the newspaper. It's littered. Right now, we have our brothers and sisters down there in Bluefield. Rastafari, Grand Rising to my brother Waldy Christoph, who's fighting this in the courts down there to maintain access to their space. We're fighting this across the island, and we're saying you can't. It is no longer you can sit on the sideline and let this happen. We're not breaking any laws. What laws are we breaking? This is our land.
We're breaking. It's the apartheid laws that we are breaking. The colonial laws that we are breaking. See, that's the thing. Is that Jamaica is still managed under colonial policies. Jamaica is still led by kind of an apartheid, structure in terms of how we set up and in terms of how people can access land or just gain access to recreational spaces. It is very apartheid-like in its structure, and so we have this colonial law over our head. The King of England is still the head of state of Jamaica. That alone should tell you something. Look how long they're taking to even come out with a statement regarding that, after they have set up an entire ministry that our taxpayers' money are being used inside of that ministry to pay people, and for what else only God knows. But here we are. It is the colonial era laws, the colonial laws. We're fighting colonialism and we're fighting apartheid. And this is our problem. So just to wrap this segment, that once again, my thing is to make an appeal in the same way I hear you making the appeal, my brother, to make an appeal to civil society, to make an appeal to the University of the West Indies, to make an appeal to NCU and UTEC. I'm talking about academia now, to look at what's happening around us, because you have a voice, and a potent voice that can make a change. Civil society, you can make a change. You have migrated to Twitter. Well, so Twitter mash up there now, so you're going to have to come back to the space and speak on behalf of the people. Civil society is not so civil anymore. What are we about? Are we going to stand by and allow the current government of Jamaica to deprive the entire Jamaica, the masses of the Jamaican people, access to the sea? It's happening in a way that we have never seen it before. Access to land, access to the beach, access to the sea. Jamaica is becoming a landlocked country right on our watch, and there is nothing that we're doing about it, thanks to the work of JABEM, that we see where these cases are now being taken up in a more regular way, and they're an urgent way, and they're heading to the courts one by one. But at the same time, there is something else that is needed to be done, and that is to address the Beach Access Act, and to hold our government's feet to the fire to say, you're going to have to repeal this. Why is it that they have made no comment on it? We're going to have to march and burn down somewhere for you to make a comment, just to comment on the Beach Access Act? The words don't come out of your mouth at all. Do we have to burn it to the ground? But Devon, I'm giving you the final words.
Yes, and I need to make two final points. So, I mean, we all know that there was a fatal accident on the Priory Lawlands Road.
Yes.
And two of those individuals who died in that tragic accident, condolences to their families, were two fishermen from Steertown. All right, and those two fishermen were actually coming in from Westmoreland, where they went fishing. Now, just think about it. All right, there may be other extended understanding as to why they had to go to Westmoreland to fish, but I'm sure they can't go to Mammy Bay to fish anymore, because that is locked off on them. And members of my community have to be jumping on their bicycles, elder, fishermen, after a ride, go all the way down the coastline, a slide through fence line to go shoot fish for their livelihood. That is what they reduced us to. But I want to mention one thing this morning about an agreement called the Escazú Agreement that the Jamaica government signed 3 years ago, September 26, 2019. That Jamaica was instrumental in negotiation of this agreement. This was an agreement that was signed in Costa Rica. And what that agreement is about, okay? It is basically a treaty that, provides tools used to protect environment and human rights. And I want to also mention that 3 out of every 4 murders, of defenders of the earth and the environment in Latin America and the Caribbean. So this agreement is supposed to protect defenders of human rights, environmental rights, protect indigenous people who are, lobbying for rights to their lands. Okay? It also sets objectives to ensure that people have access to environmental information, and you have to consult with the people when you're making decisions like these. Okay? And that legal actions can be taken by society when we see environmental, neglect or, disposition happening. And Jamaica need to ratify this agreement. It's been 3 years in the making, because without its ratification, it cannot come into law. And myself as an environmental defender, my community, other environmental defenders across Jamaica want the ratification of this, because it's going to give environmental defenders more power, and the government would also have to put mechanisms in place to protect us.
We're going to
have not ratified this.
Thank you for bringing that to my knowledge and for bringing that to the space. We're going to pick up with this. Hopefully, we can pick up on this next week. This is not something that we're going to drop. Listen, this is something. It means a whole lot to me as a human being, as an African, as a spiritual being, as a person, as somebody. As Rex Nettleford said, is modification. What they have done is that they have made us into nothing. They have discarded us, used us, and discarded us like toilet paper. And this is where we find ourselves knocking on some doors that not opening. So we're going to have to open the doors ourselves, even if we have to kick them down. My brother, thank you so much. Hopefully I can pick this up with you next week. But thank you for the work you're doing. thank you for the strident way in which you're dealing with this and the fact that you're not just talking, you're also doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.